Discover the world's top 11 books that have captivated readers across generations. These timeless classics offer wisdom, adventure, and inspiration. Pride and Prejudice. Author: Jane Austen. Pride and Prejudice. Jane Austen, Austen's most popular novel, the unforgettable story of Elizabeth Bennet and Mr. Darcy. Nominated as one of America's best-loved novels by PBS's The Great American Read, Pride and Prejudice is a novel of manners by Jane Austen, first published in 1813. The story follows the main character, Elizabeth Bennet, as she deals with issues of manners, upbringing, morality, education, and marriage in the society of the landed gentry of the British Regency. Elizabeth is the second of 5 daughters of a country gentleman living near the fictional town of Meryton in Hertfordshire, near London. Page 2 of a letter from Jane Austen to her sister Cassandra, June 11, 1799, in which she first mentions Pride and Prejudice, using its working title First Impressions. Set in England in the early 19th century, Pride and Prejudice tells the story of Mr. and Mrs. Bennet's 5 unmarried daughters after the rich and eligible Mr. Bingley and his status-conscious friend, Mr. Darcy, have moved into their neighborhood. While Bingley takes an immediate liking to the eldest Bennet daughter, Jane, Darcy has difficulty adapting to local society and repeatedly clashes with the second eldest Bennet daughter, Elizabeth. Though Austen set the story at the turn of the 19th century, it retains a fascination for modern readers, continuing near the top of lists of most loved books. It has become one of the most popular novels in English literature, selling over 20 million copies, and receives considerable attention from literary scholars. Modern interest in the book has resulted in a number of dramatic adaptations and an abundance of novels and stories imitating Austen's memorable characters or themes. A true classic that belongs on every bookshelf, certainly. Here are some prompts inspired by Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, capturing the story's timeless themes and beloved characters. To Kill a Mockingbird. Author: Harper Lee. To Kill a Mockingbird. Harper Lee, the unforgettable novel of a childhood in a sleepy southern town and the crisis of conscience that rocked it. To Kill a Mockingbird became both an instant bestseller and a critical success when it was first published in 1960. It went on to win the Pulitzer Prize in 1961 and was later made into an Academy Award-winning film, also a classic. Compassionate, dramatic, and deeply moving, To Kill a Mockingbird takes readers to the roots of human behavior, to innocence and experience, kindness and cruelty, love and hatred, humor and pathos. Now with over 18 million copies in print and translated into 40 languages, this regional story by a young Alabama woman claims universal appeal. Harper Lee always considered her book to be a simple love story. Today it is regarded as a masterpiece of American literature. 1984 75th Anniversary. Author: George Orwell. 1984 75th Anniversary. George Orwell. Written 75 years ago, 1984 was George Orwell's chilling prophecy about the future. And while 1984 has come and gone, his dystopian vision of a government that will do anything to control the narrative is timelier than ever. This 75th anniversary edition includes a new introduction by Dolan Perkins Valdez, author of Take My Hand, winner of the 2023 NAACP Image Award for Outstanding Literary Work, Fiction. A new afterword by Sandra Newman, author of Julia, a retelling of George Orwell's 1984, The Party Told You to Reject the Evidence of Your Eyes and Ears. It was their final, most essential command. Winston Smith toes the party line, rewriting history to satisfy the demands of the Ministry of Truth. With each lie he writes, Winston grows to hate the party that seeks power for its own sake and persecutes those who dare to commit thought crimes. But as he starts to think for himself, Winston can't escape the fact that Big Brother is always watching. A startling and haunting novel, 1984 creates an imaginary world that is completely convincing from start to finish. No one can deny the novel's hold on the imaginations of whole generations, or the power of its admonitions, a power that seems to grow, not lessen, with the passage of time. nominated as one of America's best-loved novels by PBS's The Great American Read. The Great Gatsby, author F. Scott Fitzgerald. The Great Gatsby. F. Scott Fitzgerald, the only authorized edition of the 20th century classic, featuring F. Scott Fitzgerald's final revisions, a foreword by his granddaughter, and a new introduction by National Book Award winner Jessamine Ward, nominated as one of America's best-loved novels by PBS's The Great American Read. The Great Gatsby, F. Scott Fitzgerald's third book, stands as the supreme achievement of his career. First published in 1925, this quintessential novel of the Jazz Age has been acclaimed by generations of readers. The story of the mysteriously wealthy Jay Gatsby and his love for the beautiful Daisy Buchanan, of lavish parties on Long Island at a time when the New York Times noted gin was the national drink and sex the national obsession, it is an exquisitely crafted tale of America in the 1920s. Moby Dick. Author Herman Melville. Moby Dick. Herman Melville, Moby Dick, or The Whale is a novel by Herman Melville, in which Ishmael narrates the monomaniacal quest of Ahab, captain of the whaler Pequod, for revenge on the albino sperm whale Moby Dick, which on a previous voyage destroyed Ahab's ship and severed his leg at the knee. Although the novel was a commercial failure and out of print at the time of the author's death in 1891, its reputation grew immensely during the 20th century. D.H. Lawrence called it one of the strangest and most wonderful books in the world, and the greatest book of the sea ever written. Moby Dick is considered a great American novel and an outstanding work of the Romantic period in America and the American Renaissance. Call Me Ishmael is one of world literature's most famous opening sentences. The product of a year and a half of writing, the book is dedicated to Nathaniel Hawthorne, in token of my admiration for his genius, and draws on Melville's experience at sea, on his reading in whaling literature, and on literary inspirations such as Shakespeare and the Bible. The detailed and realistic descriptions of whale hunting and of extracting whale oil, as well as life aboard ship among a culturally diverse crew, are mixed with exploration of class and social status, good and evil, and the existence of God. In addition to narrative prose, Melville uses styles and literary devices ranging from songs, poetry and catalogues to Shakespearean stage directions, soliloquies and asides. The author changed the title at the very last moment in September 1851. The work first appeared as The Whale in London in October 1851, and then under its definitive title Moby Dick in New York in November. The Whale, however, appears at Harper's. Only 3,200 copies were actually sold during the author's life. 100 Years of Solitude, Harper Perennial Modern Classics. Author Gabriel Garcia Marquez. 100 Years of Solitude, Harper Perennial Modern Classics. Gabriel Garcia Marquez, soon to be a Netflix original series. 100 Years of Solitude is the first piece of literature since the Book of Genesis that should be required reading for the entire human race. Garcia Marquez has done nothing less than to create in the reader a sense of all that is profound, meaningful, and meaningless in life. William Kennedy, National Observer. One of the most influential literary works of our time, 100 Years of Solitude remains a dazzling and original achievement by the masterful Gabriel Garcia Marquez, winner of the Nobel Prize in Literature. 100 Years of Solitude tells the story of the rise and fall, birth and death of the mythical town of Macondo through the history of the Buendia family. Inventive, amusing, magnetic, sad and alive with unforgettable men and women, brimming with truth, compassion, and a lyrical magic that strikes the soul, this novel is a masterpiece in the art of fiction. Things Fall Apart. Author Chinua Achebe. Things Fall Apart. Chinua Achebe, a true classic of world literature. A masterpiece that has inspired generations of writers in Nigeria, across Africa, and around the world. Barack Obama. African literature is incomplete and unthinkable without the works of Chinua Achebe. Toni Morrison, nominated as one of America's best-loved novels by PBS's The Great American Read. Things Fall Apart is the first of 3 novels in Chinua Achebe's critically acclaimed African trilogy. It is a classic narrative about Africa's cataclysmic encounter with Europe as it establishes a colonial presence on the continent. Told through the fictional experiences of Okonkwo, a wealthy and fearless Igbo warrior of Umofia in the late 1800s, Things Fall Apart explores one man's futile resistance to the devaluing of his Igbo traditions by British political and religious forces and his despair as his community capitulates to the powerful new order. With more than 20 million copies sold and translated into 57 languages, Things Fall Apart provides one of the most illuminating and permanent monuments to African experience. Achebe does not only capture life in a pre-colonial African village, he conveys the tragedy of the loss of that world while broadening our understanding of our contemporary realities. War and Peace, Vintage Classics. Author: Leo Tolstoy. War and Peace, Vintage Classics. Leo Tolstoy, from Richard Pavir and Larissa Volokhonsky, the best-selling, award-winning translators of Anna Karenina and the Brothers Karamazov, comes a brilliant, engaging, and eminently readable translation of Leo Tolstoy's master epic. Nominated as one of America's best-loved novels by PBS's The Great American Read, War and Peace centers broadly on Napoleon's invasion of Russia in 1812 and follows 3 of the best-known characters in literature: Pierre Bezukhov, the illegitimate son of a count who is fighting for his inheritance and yearning for spiritual fulfillment; Prince Andrei Bolkonsky, who leaves behind his family to fight in the war against Napoleon; and Natasha Rostov, the beautiful young daughter of a nobleman, who intrigues both men. As Napoleon's army invades, Tolstoy vividly follows characters from diverse backgrounds: peasants and nobility, civilians and soldiers, as they struggle with the problems unique to their era, their history, and their culture. And as the novel progresses, these characters transcend their specificity, becoming some of the most moving and human figures in world literature. Pavir and Volokhonsky have brought us this classic novel in a translation remarkable for its fidelity to Tolstoy's style and cadence, and for its energetic, accessible prose. Don Quixote, Penguin Classics. Author: Miguel de Cervantes Saavedra. Don Quixote, Penguin Classics. Miguel de Cervantes Saavedra, nominated as one of America's best-loved novels by PBS's The Great American Read, Don Quixote has become so entranced reading tales of chivalry that he decides to turn knight-errant himself. In the company of his faithful squire, Sancho Panza, these exploits blossom in all sorts of wonderful ways. While Quixote's fancy often leads him astray, he tilts at windmills, imagining them to be giants. Sancho acquires cunning and a certain sagacity. Sane man and wise fool, they roam the world together, and together they have haunted readers' imaginations for nearly 400 years. With its experimental form and literary playfulness, Don Quixote has been generally recognized as the first modern novel. This Penguin Classics edition, with its beautiful new cover design, includes John Rutherford's masterly translation, which does full justice to the energy and wit of Cervantes's prose, as well as a brilliant critical introduction by Roberto González Echeverría. Harry Potter Paperback Box Set, Books 1-7. Author: J.K. Rowling. Harry Potter Paperback Box Set, Books 1-7. J.K. Rowling. Now, for the first time ever, J.K. Rowling's 7 best-selling Harry Potter books are available in a stunning paperback box set. The Harry Potter series has been hailed as one for the ages by Stephen King and a spellbinding saga by USA Today. And most recently, the New York Times called Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows the fastest-selling book in history. This is the ultimate Harry Potter collection for Harry Potter fans of all ages. The Lord of the Rings. Author: J.R.R. Tolkien. The Lord of the Rings. J.R.R. Tolkien. An extraordinary work, pure excitement. New York Times Book Review: One ring to rule them all, one ring to find them, one ring to bring them all and in the darkness bind them. In ancient times the rings of power were crafted by the elven smiths, and Sauron, the Dark Lord, forged the One Ring, filling it with his own power so that he could rule all others. But the One Ring was taken from him, and though he sought it throughout Middle-earth, it remained lost to him. After many ages it fell by chance into the hands of the hobbit Bilbo Baggins. From Sauron's fastness in the Dark Tower of Mordor, his power spread far and wide. Sauron gathered all the great rings, but always he searched for the one ring that would complete his dominion. When Bilbo reached his 11th birthday he disappeared, bequeathing to his young cousin Frodo the ruling ring and a perilous quest, to journey across Middle-earth, deep into the shadow of the Dark Lord, and destroy the ring by casting it into the cracks of doom. The Lord of the Rings tells of the great quest undertaken by Frodo and the Fellowship of the Ring, Gandalf the Wizard, the hobbits Merry, Pippin, and Sam, Gimli the Dwarf, Legolas the Elf, Boromir of Gondor, and a tall, mysterious stranger called Strider.